All right, we're going to go ahead and begin. First of all, thank you all for joining us today for this newest edition of LeagueApps Learning, where today we're going to be focused on club training, specifically the tools we have around tryouts and club teams. And a little bit more about me. If you joined the previous webinar, you've heard this before, so you can tune out for a few seconds. But my name is Taylor. I'm a Senior Manager of Customer Success here at LeagueApps. I've been at LeagueApps for a little over 4 years, working on the customer success team. Many of you on this webinar, maybe you've interacted with me over support. I am seeing some familiar names in the attendee list here, so welcome. Glad to see you here. Currently living on Manhattan's Upper East Side, but I was born and raised in Wyoming. Took a long path to New York, but this is my permanent residence now. And of course, everyone that works at LeagueApps has some sort of connection to sports, and I'm no different. It's always been a big part of my life as a player and a fan. I played mostly soccer and basketball as a kid. Not very good at either one, but I definitely enjoyed it. And that turned me into a lifelong sports fan where, of course, I'm a big Wyoming Cowboys fan at the university there, a big Buffalo Bills fan, kind of turning into a Yankees fan. Hopefully that doesn't make anyone hate me, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for the commitment to watch that many baseball games right now, but definitely appreciate the sport. In my free time, I love traveling with my wife. We try and go all over the place. That's a picture of us on the right in India, pre-COVID, when we could travel. And then I love building model cars in my free time. And then one of my COVID hobbies is, if any of you are big readers, I've been reading a ton of John le Carré spy novels. So I've been trying to work my way through every John le Carré novel about his hero, George Smiley. So a little bit of a nerd fact there. So let's go into the agenda for today's call or today's webinar. We're going to go over club management. So how to set up tryouts. We're going to go over the most common tryout setup. There's a lot of ways to set up programs in LeagueApps, as you may know. And then we'll go over how to set up club teams and payment plans. And then we're going to go over the invite tool, how you actually invite people from tryouts to teams. And then after that, we're going to have live Q&A. I do have my colleagues, Brittany and Anki, on the webinar as well. So as we proceed through the topics, feel free to use the Q&A tool in the Zoom webinar to ask questions as we go, and then we'll do some live Q&A at the end. Before that, I want to show you some other things, do some plugs here for other cool resources that LeagueApps has. We're going to have more webinars. And you'll be hearing about those in email. We send out some marketing resources about the upcoming events that we have. But you can also see those upcoming events on our website, events.leagueapps.com. And also we have an awesome blog site as well, a lot of great content for you as the organizers. You know, we often hear that there's a ton of information out there for players and coaches, not enough information out there for you as the organizers, and our blog does a great job of getting you some of those resources. And then of course our help site, support.leagueapps.com. A lot of great information there. If you forget something that I said, the webinar is going to be posted there once it's ready. And we also have an entire help page about these these program registration options and great explainers on each one. And you can of course contact our support team, support@leagueapps.com 7 days a week. We're available for emergencies on weekends and holidays. We also have live chat during weekdays, typically about 6 hours. From 10 to 1 Eastern, and then from 2 to 5 Eastern, we have live chat available within the console. So I'm going to show you these pages real quick. So here, this is our events page, events.leagueapps.com, where we can actually see upcoming events. So you'll see we have one next week for volleyball, and we also have some later in the month as well. So definitely check that out. Here's our blog page. This is a great thing to keep an eye on. And then, of course, our support page. If you want to find the webinar when it's there, you just come to support.leagueapps.com, search for whatever you want, and there it is. So quick and easy, lots of great stuff out there for you all. So let's go ahead and jump into the content here. And we're going to start, of course, with tryouts. So give me just a moment here to get my screen reorganized and we'll get started. So when you log into your account, the first thing we need to do is go and start creating a program. But actually before that, we're going to take a step back and talk about the things that you need before you even start creating a program. One thing that we encounter as on the CS team, on the customer success team, is people need to get their tryouts set up or the program set up very quickly, but the details haven't really been hashed out yet. So those are the details we want to talk about now. It's like you need the days your tryouts are going to happen, how much they're going to cost, what your age groups are, where they're going to happen, things like that. There's some of those details we can add in later, but you definitely want to have all that stuff organized so we can get the program created and get it ready to send out to your members. So once you have all those details organized, we're going to come into the LeagueApps Management Console. And we're going to click Create a New Program on the right here under Quick Links. And for tryouts, we typically use events. Leagues, tournaments, events, camps, clubs, they can all pretty much do the same thing. They're just there for organizational purposes. There are a few minor differences. But just to keep things straight and organized, we're going to go with event for tryouts. And then, of course, we'll use club for the club teams later on. So I'm going to go ahead and select event. And the first thing it's going to ask me is this a grouped program? This trips a lot of people up. The way we're going to set up tryouts today, the most common setup, you don't necessarily have to do a group program. An instance where you may want to do a group program is if you have a great deal of girls tryouts and boys tryouts where you want to keep them separate, where you could put your girls tryouts in one sub-program and your boys tryouts in another sub-program. You don't even have to do that. You could just create your boys tryouts and girls tryouts as separate programs, which is completely acceptable as well. So I'm not going to check that for this one. I'm just going to create a single program for tryouts and then use some settings within the program to separate out different age groups and things like that. Some of you may have an account with mixed programs for adults and kids. Most of you probably just have a youth program, so you wouldn't be making this choice. And then we're just going to start filling out this details page. A lot of this stuff on this page will be displayed to your members. So we want to make sure it's accurate. And my rule of thumb for this edit details page is don't fill out anything here unless it's exactly accurate. If you're like, well, it doesn't actually happen on these days, then just leave it blank. I'll show you how we can put those details in later. So we're going to go ahead and select a sport. Today we're going to go with soccer. So we're going to scroll all the way down, find soccer. You can fill in the season and the level if you'd like. Season is probably more applicable, like if it's your summer season. Level, you probably want to leave that blank because that's what tryouts are for. We're trying to evaluate the level of the participants. Gender, select whatever you'd like here, whatever applies. And then we'll put in a name. Don't overthink this, but we do want to be deliberate. So usually we'd say something like, 2021 spring, summer, soccer tryouts, something like that. The year is important because if you've been on LeagueApps for several years and you're looking at a long list of programs, you want to be able to quickly see which year these programs applied to. If I'm skipping stuff during this whole thing, it's because it honestly isn't that important, and we can go back and change it if we need to. So I'm not going to skip any critical settings that will make your program break or not allow people to register. The next setting we're going to come down to is activity start and end date. This is when tryouts begin and when they end. Now, this is one of those things where if it's not exactly accurate, we don't want to show people this. So for example, if you have tryouts on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday over 2 weeks, this activity start date might not make sense because what it's actually going to show people on the registration portal is that the tryouts maybe run all the way from May 12th to May 19th, when maybe that's not the case. There's just a few days within these dates their tryouts take place. So we do have to fill out the start date. It is worth putting in here. So let's say that our tryouts happen on Monday the 17th, and they end, the last day of tryouts is on Friday the 21st. Now, like I said, because the tryouts don't actually happen every day of the week, I'm going to uncheck these boxes over here, uncheck these boxes to hide these dates from the registration page. Next, we want to put in our registration start dates. This is the first day people could register. We'll say today. And then the last day people can register, when you want registration to shut off automatically. And it shuts off at midnight on that day. So we're going to say that it actually, the last day people can register will be the last day of tryouts. And then we'll want to add a location. Again, if your tryouts happen at more than one location, you want to leave the location blank. You don't want to confuse people by sending them potentially to the wrong location. We can say this program takes place on between times, but for tryouts, like I said, you're noticing that I'm hiding a lot of stuff and skipping a lot of things because I don't want to confuse any of your members. The best way to get them the information in LeagueApps for when tryouts happen, where they are, things like that, is to actually use this program description. And you'll see there's actually a table tool. So let's say we have 10 groups and we need to tell them when they're going to tryouts and where they are. I can actually insert a table. We can add more than one row, but we could say, age group for our header. Actually, I think there's a tool for this. One more time, insert table. I can add a head, which will be a column header. So I can say age group, date and time, location. So now we can fill this out. We can call it 10U. We're going to call this May 17 at 5 p.m., something like that. And then the location, surf, city, field. So by using this table tool, it's going to put it all in the description. All this other stuff above is actually hidden except for the registration start and end date. And we'll actually see this here when we do a test registration. And that way, if parents are looking for the information, they're not going to be distracted by a bunch of other stuff. They're going to look right at the description and it will all be right there. So we're going to say this is May 17th. We'll call it May 19th at 5 p.m. at surf, city, field. So I'm not going to spend the entire time filling out this table, but this is a really handy tool that you can all use to make the description very clear and concise so people aren't confused about where to go and when to show up. So once I have this all set, I'm going to click Save and Edit Options at the bottom, which will take me right into the registration options page. And this page is a bunch of settings that govern how this program operates, how people can register, how much it's going to cost, how old do they need to be, things like that. And for tryouts, it's actually going to be pretty simple. What we typically are going to do is allow players to register for groups directly, and then these groups are going to represent your different grade levels, age groups, things like that. So I'm going to check this box. Again, I'm going to skip a bunch of stuff. Under email notifications, you can decide if some of your administrator levels need to get notified every time somebody registers for tryouts. Now, when we're dealing with hundreds of kids registering for tryouts, you may not want to get that many emails, up to you totally, but you can just check or uncheck these boxes as needed. We're typically going to skip capacity settings. Usually you're looking for as many kids to come to tryouts as possible. And then we'll come down to if this event is pay-based or not. If your tryouts are free, you just leave this off. You're good to go. There's actually not a whole lot you need to do on this page if that's the case. If it is pay-based, we'll go ahead and turn that on. And we want our settings to look like this. We want to gear payments toward how much it's going to cost for somebody to join a group. We're going to go create those groups here in just a second. So we're going to say, if you need to join the 10U tryout group, how much is that going to cost? And technically what that means is we're going to allow the players to share a team fee or a group fee and that they have to share it. And then we're going to say there's a price per player. So essentially what this means is when you join a group, there's going to be a cost for that. And we could say tryouts are $25. Next, you can decide if you want to charge fees on top of the $25. I strongly recommend you work in any necessary fees into the tryout cost. So if you want to account for the fees that LeagueApps is charging, maybe you charge 27 and 25. That will avoid questions from members on what the fee is for. And it'll also try and deter people from paying you offline. I know it's a big a big time sink for you all as organizers when people are handing you cash and checks at the event, and then you have to go figure out where they went. But there are processing fee and transaction fee settings. Those can be set however you'd like. If you already have the transaction fee setting configured before with us, then you don't have to reconfigure it. It's already good to go. But if you do need to configure processing fees, you can configure those however you'd like. You can charge half the fees, all the fees. If you ever have questions about that, be sure to let us know. Next, we're going to come down to additional fees and prices and payment plans. You can do early bird and late registration pricing if you want. I'm not going to spend time on that today, but that is an option. But I do want to focus on payment deadlines. Most commonly, what you'll want to set is a strictly enforced payment deadline. And that means everybody that's in your tryout registration list is paid for and reserved. If we do other options here, there's the potential that people could show up to tryouts and not have paid yet, which is an awkward situation. So most commonly, we strongly encourage you to have a strictly enforced payment deadline, which gives people, gives your members 30 minutes to complete payment before their registration gets invalidated. That doesn't delete their account. They can just go back in and start again if this does happen. And typically in tryouts, we aren't going to need payment plans either. So once we have all this set, we're going to go down to our confirmation messages. And if you do have a strictly enforced payment deadline, the only two confirmation messages that you'll need to worry about are the successful and the abandoned registration message. Successful registration message is a good spot to put follow-up information. This automatically gets sent to the parents and shows up on their screen when they're done registering. So you could say, here's your next steps. Here's what to bring to tryouts. Here's where tryouts are. This is also a great place to put your contact information, because if a parent does have follow-up questions, then you can put your contact information right here so they know where to get in touch. So here you could put whatever you want, like next steps, and then have a list, what to bring. Whoops. And questions. So you could do something like this and fill out your confirmation message to automatically relay critical information to those people that are coming to tryouts. The abandoned registration message is if people do fail to pay within that 30 minutes, they will get an automatic email. You don't really have to fill this out. There's already a default one in here, and it's pretty clear in the email what needs to happen to those parents or for those parents. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and click Save Options. Now, I'm not done yet. A question, this is very important, a question we often see in support is, I just created my program, I opened it up for registration, and no one can register. Now, the reason that typically is because you have not created any groups yet. Now, you'll remember in the registration options that allow players to register for groups directly, so we need to have those groups created here. So all we need to do is come to groups, and these are going to be our age groups, or kind of our tryout delineations, 10U group. And I'm just going to follow what I put in that description before, 10U group. We don't have to change anything else in this page. So we can call it 10U tryout group if we'd like. Save and add another group, 12U. Now, if you have boys and girls tryouts, you might want to say 12U girls tryout, something like that. It's up to you. You can create as many of these as you want. It's up to your organization. And then we'll click Save. So now we have our 2 tryout groups created. So now this program is just about ready. The last 2 things you'd want to check here, or the last 3 things I should say, is you want to double check your form fields and make sure these are all correct for people registering for tryouts. So you want to double check your form fields and make any adjustments necessary. You also want to check your waivers and make sure that these are correct for tryouts. Maybe last season you didn't need to collect a COVID waiver, and now you do. So you want to check your waivers here and make sure that these are correct, and then make any adjustments. And then lastly, very important, is you want to do a test registration. Like I said before, we'll get questions and support. Why isn't my registration working? The best thing you can do to prevent that before you set this thing live and send it out to all of your members is to come back home here in your program, go to your event URL, and do a test registration. And here's our little handy chart. You see how nice that looks, where I hid all the other information up here, like the activity dates and the days of the week, and I put it in the description down here instead so it looks nice. So you absolutely want to do a test registration, very important. That's going to uncover any potential issues before you send this out to your members. So let's go ahead and do one. We're going to register. Taylor at, enter my email and log in. It's going to ask me which child I want to register for tryouts because I'd already registered for something in this site before. Group player. I'll show you how to rename group player if you want here in just a second. So it says tryout player. I'm going to click group player. Here are my groups or my teams. And the more you add, the longer this list gets. So I'm going to do a 10-year tryout group. I can enter my form fields here. And then click next. I'll agree to my waivers, click next. And then here, I would proceed to payment. I'm going to use my stored payment method here. I'll click pay now. Looks like my expiration date might be bad. Yep, my card is expired. So I would have had to enter a new card. But this registration is working. I would just have to enter a new payment method. And because of this test registration, I can be confident now that I can send it out to my members. All right, some kind of polishing touches here. Under settings and preferences is where you can rename team. So you'll see it was the team label is group. So I could rename this to tryout. So instead of it saying a group player fee, it would say a tryout player fee. So that can be a nice little touch to make things a bit more intuitive. And then if you want, you can also add your tryouts to the calendar. I'm not going to go over that today. We do have a separate webinar on using the calendar. So I do suggest you check that out. All right, next. So we got our tryouts ready. They're done. We're going to fast forward a couple of weeks. Your tryouts are ready, you have your rosters ready, and you need to start creating your club teams and getting all that stuff prepared. And that's where we're going to actually go and create a new program. So I'm going to come back to my dashboard. And over here on the right again, I'm going to click create a new program. If your club teams are pretty similar or your tryouts are similar to last year, you can also copy a previous program, but we're going to pretend that everyone's doing this from scratch. So over here on the right again, I'm going to click create a new program, and this time we're going to select club. And there are 3 very important steps, if you are all taking notes, to creating a club team in LeagueApps. One is creating the program, of course, which we're going to do right now. The second step is creating payment plans. And then the third step is creating teams. Now, these have to be done in that order. You can always go back and add more teams and more payment plans. But if you create a team in the wrong order, there's potential for it to be misconfigured and not have the correct payment information. We see that sometimes where you have 10 teams configured correctly, but then you added an 11th team and forgot to, do this in the right order, add the payment plans first and then add the team. And that 11th team ends up being misconfigured for some reason, and then people register without getting invoiced or something like that. So I'll show you those steps here in the course of this next portion. So when we're creating a new club team, again, it's going to ask if this is a grouped program or not. I'm going to skip that just like I did with the tryouts. There's a lot of rationale around if you should use this or not, but today we're not going to. Pretty similar page, youth account. We're going to go do soccer again, or youth program, sorry. A season, summer. We're going to put all of our teams here. We're just going to select any. And then we're going to do a pretty similar name, 2021 spring, summer, club teams. We're going to go all here. We're going to do our activity start and end date. I am going to have these visible so parents know kind of when the season runs. So we're going to say our season runs from June 1st to September 1st, for example. Registration start and end date. I often see organizations leave these blank so you can register kids into your club teams whenever you'd like, but that's up to you. So I'm going to leave these blank for now. So, and the registration really starts when you start inviting kids. So this isn't really helpful. And registration end date might just trip you up if you do need to add kids to your rosters halfway through the season or something like that. So these are optional. Description, up to you if you want to use this or not. If you do want to put some club information on this page, you can. I'm going to go ahead and skip it. And we'll go to save and edit options. Excellent. So the first thing we're going to see here on this next page is this checkbox, enable custom team pricing and registration rules. If you're creating your club teams and you don't see this checkbox, email us at support@leagueapps.com and we'll get it turned on for you. This is a specific feature that needs to be enabled in each account by LeagueApps here. So I'm going to check this box, and what this means is a lot of these settings that we're seeing on this page will be able to be customized by team. Like usually in LeagueApps, if you want to have something that's a different price with different not different waivers, a different price or different age restrictions, things like that, then you have to go create a totally separate program. With custom team pricing and registration rules, we can have many, many teams within a single program, all with different costs and payment plans associated to them. So this is a very powerful feature that lets you drive a massive amount of registrations and payments through a single program while also keeping it organized by team and player. So that's what we're going to do today. Next, we're going to do a very similar thing. We're going to allow players to register for teams directly, but what they're actually going to be doing is registering for that team directly via an invitation from you, which we'll get into at the end here. We also want to enable probably program staff registrations so you can get your coaches invited to the teams as well. So I'm going to turn that on and leave everything else here blank. We're going to assume that you all are the gatekeepers and you are choosing which coaches join the team and you are choosing which players join the teams. So this would be a common setup here for that situation. All right. I'm going to leave the age restriction blank. And the reason why is everything on this page is kind of going to be a default for every single team. And then once we get into adding teams, we're going to customize it from there. So we don't want to set an age restriction here because it would apply to every single team potentially, which wouldn't make sense if you have multiple age groups. You know what the email notifications do. We don't need any capacity rules because you all as the organizers know how many kids you're inviting to each team. We don't need to actually set a restriction here. That might actually just slow you down. And a lot of the stuff is actually, you'll see here, collapsed because it just doesn't, it's not applicable for club teams because we're customizing these things team by team. So that's why we're going to skip just about everything on this page except the club team is pay-based. So we're going to go ahead and turn this on. And then very similar, like we did in Tryouts, we're going to charge a fee to join a team. And you'll see here a price per player. Now, like I said before, this is kind of the default for all teams, so you do absolutely want to put something here. This would kind of be a default pay in full price for your teams. I usually say you pick one of your more common, more expensive teams. So let's say, you know, $2,000, for example. And how this will help you is in the event, like I said before, if you misconfigure a team, it will fall back on this price. So you wouldn't have people registering for free. They would at least be invoiced for something, which you could then convert to a payment plan in the event that something gets misconfigured. But I'm going to show you exactly how you can prevent that. So you do absolutely want to put a price here. Just kind of pick one of your more common team prices and throw that in. We talked about transaction fees and payment or processing fees. You can configure those however you'd like. If you need our advice, just let us know. And then we'll go down to payment deadlines. And again, I strongly encourage you to do a strictly enforced payment deadline to ensure that everyone that joins your teams is paid or is at least paying something. A lot of people join LeagueApps because of this. They don't want to be chasing payments down. They need better payment reporting, and they want to ensure that everyone that joins their teams and their programs are paid. And this is a great way to ensure that. This is the first step along that path. So strictly enforced payment deadline. And then, yes, we are going to enable payment plans. So as soon as I click this, we're going to be on to step 2. So step 1 is we create the program, which is what we just did. And then we're going to click Save Options and go to Payment Plans. If you scroll down here and click Save Options, you're not lost. You can also find payment plans up here under Settings. So I'm going to click Save Options and go to Payment Plans. And now we need to start building these out. Now, some of you on this call may have many teams and many payment options. Some of you may only have a few, and that's okay. This program can handle it all. So you need to have all those planned out, of course. You say like, okay, this team is going to pay this much on these dates. This team is going to pay this much on these dates, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to start with a 10U team, and let's say that our 10U team pays $1,200 over the course of the summer. So by the time the season wraps up in August, or on September 1st, they're fully paid up. So we're going to call this 10U installment plan. You can call this whatever you like, but definitely name it something that the parents will recognize and that you will recognize as well, so you're not confusing yourself or parents. So 10U installment plan works great. You could even call it like a 10U 3 installment plan, and then you could create another 10U plan called a 10U 6 installment plan. It's up to you. Lots of options here, but we'll just call it 10U installment plan. The next thing it's going to ask us is who it's for. The coaches, program staff is going to be like a coach or a team manager, something like that. That's not the case here. Each family is paying their own way into this program, so it's going to be for a team member. That's who's paying for this. Next, it's going to ask us, who is this payment plan available for? Which teams? Is this 10U team, or is this 10U installment plan going to apply to every team? We know the answer is no. So we're actually going to do select teams. Select teams is far and away going to be the most common option. There are scenarios where you may want to have a payment plan apply to all teams, but we're not going to cover that here. Next, require first payment during registration. These next three checkboxes can all be independent, and you can configure these however you'd like. Most commonly, you'll want some sort of deposit. Say like, yes, you can join the team, you can pay us in installments, but we need the first one today. And that's what this checkbox means. We're going to require that first payment during registration. And again, we can also strictly enforce that, which gives the parents or the members 30 minutes to complete that first payment within registration. Otherwise, it gets invalidated and they'd have to start over. Next, this is probably the most powerful checkbox in the entire platform: require auto pay enrollment. And what this means is, I'm going to require you to pay the first payment today. You have 30 minutes to do so, and in order to complete this first payment, you have to store a payment method so you'll be automatically billed for your next installments. And this is a big time saver for you all. If you have an 8-payment payment plan, it extends over 4 months. You want the peace of mind that it's just going to get charged and you don't have to chase people down. I highly recommend this setup, where you're requiring the first payment, you're requiring auto enrollment, and then LeagueApps takes care of the rest. It just auto charges your members on those predetermined dates, which we will establish here in a moment. Next, we can also set up automatic reminders. Let's say a week before somebody's card is going to get charged, we'll send them a reminder that that's going to happen. And then in the event that that payment fails, we can send automatic follow-ups to that member to go in and fix it and to update their payment method. And once we're all set here, we're going to click Save and Add Installments. Excellent. So what we're going to do now is scroll down to the bottom, and here we're going to see this link to add an installment. So what you want planned out here is when you want these payments, when they're going to be charged. So I'll click Add an Installment, and we need to determine like this first payment. So it's $1,200. That's how much we know we need to collect. So we're going to say this first installment is $400. Actually, we'll do $300. We'll do $300. Now this first payment, like we said, is required during registration. So this date almost doesn't matter. It just has to be in the future. So if we know that we're going to do our invites around June 1st, let's just set it to June 1st. Even if people register before June 1st, LeagueApps will still require them to pay the $300. So we're going to say add. We'll scroll back down and just keep adding these in. 300. And we'll call this June. July 1st. We'll do it on the 1st here. We'll do 4 payments on the 1st. And we're just going to keep adding these in. August. And then one final payment on September 1st. And there we go. We have a payment plan. So now what we'd want to do is create additional payment plans. It's good to try and get as many of these out of the way as you can. You can go back and forth to create teams and payment plans, but just kind of cranking these out in one step is a good plan. And now if I scroll back up here, you'll see down here at the bottom, you can click update and add another plan. But a cool thing to know is if all of your payment plans are kind of similar, like you're charging everybody on the same days just for different amounts for different teams. If I click view all payment plans up here on the right or under settings, I can go to payment plans. You're going to see this copy icon. In some of the other webinars, we've probably called out this icon. If you see this icon anywhere in LeagueApps, it means to copy. So I can actually copy the 10U installment plan to create my 12U installment plan, which is, we'll assume, is going to be a little bit more. You'll see some checkboxes here. We don't have any teams yet, so this doesn't matter. So I'm going to leave that unchecked. We can also shift the installment dates if we need to, but I don't want to do that either. I'm going to leave the installment dates unchanged and click copy. And here we go. We have the 10U installment plan copy. So I'm just going to rename this to 12U installment plan. You'll want to reconfirm all these details just to be sure. It's for a team member. It's for select teams. I'm requiring payment. Reminders are the same. And then I want to click update plan. And now I can start adjusting the installments to say that these are $400 a month instead of $300. And all I have to do is make these adjustments quickly. And this team will be just a little bit more expensive. And there we go. We're going to go ahead and save that. And if I come back up here and click view all payment plans, now we'll see we have 2 installment plans here. And again, you can create as many of these as you want. Like I said, you can do 3-month plans versus 6-month plans or things like that. It's all up to you. But let's say what I'm going to show you now is, let's say we have multiple 10U teams and multiple 12U teams that go by different names, and how we can actually apply these payment plans to multiple teams. So you don't need a payment plan for every single team. We really only need a payment plan per price point. So really, if we had dozens of teams and a bunch of them are charged or have the cost of $1,200, we could actually use this payment plan for all of them. And we just need to change the name so it's not confusing. So that's step 2. Step 1 was creating the program, done. Step 2 was creating payment plans. We're done with that. And step 3 is to create teams. So I'm going to click teams at the top. And now I'm going to click add a team. And this is going to look a lot different than when we were adding teams or groups to the tryouts. So I'm going to click add a team. And now it's going to give us a choice here. So we're going to call this, we'll call this 10U black. And now it's going to ask us how we want to configure this program. This is the potential. This step right here is where we introduce the step where you may misconfigure a team. Something to drill in. You're never wrong if you're selecting custom settings and pricing. Like, you can customize the team. This means it'll use the default program settings from here. This means it'll take the default program settings, but you have to manually invoice everyone on the team. We don't want that. That's way too much work. So really, you're really never going to get yourself in trouble if you select custom settings and pricing. When in doubt, select custom settings and pricing. All right, so we have our 10U black team with custom settings and pricing. And now LeagueApps is going to ask us, what do we want customized about this team? And it's usually going to be the price. And we know that the 10U team is $1,200, not $2,000. And what this first price setting here, this is very important as well, this represents the pay in full price. So your parents and your members are going to be presented with options. You can choose these payment plans, or you can pay for everything now. So what we'd want to adjust here is this to $1,200. Or maybe you give your members a discount if they pay for everything. So maybe we say it's $1,100 if you pay in full instead of $1,200. But we're going to just go ahead and set it the same here. And I'll show you how this looks when we do a registration. But the pay in full price is $1,200. I'm not going to adjust any of these other settings. They are usually left alone. And then down here, we'll see those 2 payment plans that I just created. And this is where I can tell LeagueApps that this payment plan applies to this team, or which payment plans apply to this team. Again, like I said, there are going to be many, many options. So I'm going to select the 10U installment plan. We can skip the rest on this page, and then I'll click Save and add another team. And we're going to have more than one 10U team. So we're going to do 10U Silver, custom settings and pricing, 1200, 10U installment plan, save and add another team. And this is why these custom team registration options are so powerful. Usually you'd have to create a whole another program for a whole team, but now we don't have to do that anymore. So we're going to do 10U Gold, custom settings and pricing, 1200, and we're going to select the 10U installment plan and then save and add another team. And now we're going to go into our 12U Black. We know that this one is 1600 for 4 payments of 400 instead of 300. 12U installment plan, save and add another team. So this is step 3. If you have all your payment plans in there already, this can just be a breeze. You're just kind of rinsing and repeating here. Oops, that's the wrong price, 600. Can't type. There we go, 1600, 12U installment plan. And we're just going through this very quickly because we're all masters at this now. We've done it 100 times, so we can just quickly configure some teams. 12U installment plan, and there we go. I'm going to click Save because this is my last team. And here we go. We have 6 teams. The 10U teams have been configured for $1,200 with the payment plan. The 12U teams have been configured for $1,600 with the payment plan, with predetermined dates to finish payments by September 1st. So we're pretty much good to go, except like with the other program, we need to double check some things. We want to double check our form fields and make sure these form fields are correct for people signing up for club teams. And we want to double check the waivers and make sure that those are correct for people joining a program. Some common differences will be if they join the actual team, maybe you need them to agree to a player code of conduct or a contract. Waivers are a great spot for that. And for form fields, maybe you don't collect jersey information for tryouts, but you do need to collect it when they actually do accept a roster spot in your teams. All right, excellent. Let me just make sure I'm not getting any questions. Okay, cool. So now we have our 2 programs. I'm going to come back to the dashboard here, and you're going to have to imagine things with me here for a moment. Let's see if it's on here. Here's our spring summer club teams. Here's our spring summer tryouts. So kind of imagine with me that you're at a point in your season where your tryouts are done. You've evaluated all the players, you've selected the players that you want to join your teams, and you're ready to invite them to your teams. Now, this is what we're going to be calling our invite tool, or our player invite tool. And I want you to think of this as a from a program to another program. The mistake we often see is that people will try to invite players to their club teams, and they'll actually go to the club teams first. But what we need to do is we need to go to the from program. Where are we inviting players from? And that's, of course, is going to be the tryouts. So we're at a point, we want to send out invitations. We're ready to go. I'm going to come to my tryout program right here. And under people here, we'll see player invites. And that's where we want to go. I can also just click on players here, and we're going to see player invites on the right. Let me just take care of this invoice real quick so we don't run into any issues and my registration doesn't get deleted. Okay, let me go back a couple pages. Excellent. Okay, so we have our tryout program here. We have our people, and then we're going to click player invites on the right. Now we're going to see here at the top, we have some options. It's going to say players invited to this event. Now you're like, well, this is weird, but kind of think about it. We're not inviting people to tryouts, right? We need to send player invites to other programs. Our other program being our spring 2020 or our spring, 2021 club teams, or spring summer teams, I should say. So that's what we want to select. We want to send player invites to other programs. When we go look at club teams, this will actually show us stuff, but in the tryouts, it's not. So I'm going to click Send Player Invites to Other Programs. And now we're going to essentially fill out and make a selection in all three of these drop-down menus. So we're going to say, which tryout group do we want to invite players from? Let's start with the 10U group. So you're essentially going to be sending out invitations in waves. We're going to do our 10U tryout invites. We're going to do our 12U invites. And we're also going to do it team by team. So we're going to say, okay, I'm going to invite kids from my 10U group. And then we have to also tell LeagueApps which program we're inviting them to. So here's the from program, what's the to program? And here it is, 2021 Spring Summer Club teams. And now we need to tell LeagueApps which team are we going to invite them to. And we'll do 10U Black. This is very important because essentially what we're telling LeagueApps here is like, I'm inviting this kid to this program, to this specific team, which removes some steps for the parents. Like they'll log in, they'll accept the invite, and it's going to take them straight to the point where they need to choose which payment option they would like to select, a payment plan or pay in full. So it streamlines things for them. It also makes things private. The parent of kid test here is not going to see the price points for the other teams because this invitation is going to be specific to the player and the team. So that's why this is a very powerful feature and keeps things private, and it also makes you all the gatekeepers for those teams. So we're going to go ahead and do this, and then I'll show you test registration, and we'll jump into questions because I know we're running a bit over here. But this is very important. So we have our team selected. You would see a sizable list of kids where you could select more than one, but we only have one test registration. So I'm going to click Invite Selected Players. You can put in your own message if you like. I'm not going to. And here we go. And now I can jump over to the Spring Summer Club teams and go to Player Invites. And this being the to program, not the from program. And here we go. Here's the players invited to this club team. And we'll see it's pending. So let me show you how this would work. I'm going to log in. I'd get an email as well. You'll see I have some old registrations here, but your parents can also accept this straight from their dashboard on mobile, on their phones, or via the desktop here. Here's my invitation. I click accept. And you'll see it skipped the parent profile and the child profile because we already know who the kid is, and it takes us straight to the payment selection where I can choose how I want to pay as a parent. I'm going to choose my payment plan. I'm going to fill out some information. Oops. I'm going to proceed to accept the waiver. And there we go. I would make my first payment within 30 minutes by bank account or credit card, and you're done. I've accepted the invitation. I'm on the hook with a stored payment method to be billed automatically all the way till September 1st, and then you're done. All right, excellent. So that wraps up the program setup. Again, if your setup is a bit more complicated that doesn't quite fit, make sure you let your customer success manager or the support team know, and we'll help you through any sort of intricacies that you need to work through. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the questions and answers here. I'm also going to pull up the Q&A on my screen. So if you do have any questions, go ahead and let them fly. I don't want to keep everyone here too long, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them and I'll answer as many as I can. And if there's no questions, that's okay. That just means I did an amazing job explaining every possible scenario, right? All right, we got one from Katie here. All right, that's a great question, Katie. If I need to add a player to a program mid-year with a prorated plan, how do I do that? All right, let me go ahead and close this. So there's a couple options here, Katie. One is you could just have them register as normal and then adjust their payment plan from there. Like if I come to, let me refresh this page. Like you could say, go ahead and register, pay your deposit, and we'll take care of the prorated part in your following payments. So here we have this unpaid invoice. So one option is you could say, like I just said, go ahead and register, pay your first $300, and then you could just edit their remaining installments to do the prorated part. So, you know, if it was supposed to be half, you could just edit these 3 remaining installments of 300 to make up the difference. That's an easy way to do it where you don't have to go create new payment plans. The other way is with a private payment plan. In our club team program, under settings and payment plans, we can create a new payment plan called, actually we're going to copy the old one, right? I'm forgetting my own advice. I can copy the 10U installment plan. I'm going to click copy. We're going to call this a 10U prorated installment plan. Get rid of the copy. Everything else here is the same, except we're going to make it a private plan and put in a code. So we'll call this like soccer 2021. And what would happen is you need to give the parent this code before they register, and they can use this code to unlock a private plan. And then you just adjust your installments down here accordingly to make them 150 with different dates, of course, because all the dates will need to be in the future. So we can say, oh yeah, we can prorate it. You know, we'll do July 15th through September 1st instead with shorter payment gaps and things like that. So that's a good way to do prorated plans as well, is with a private payment plan. Last option is you can give people a discount code. If you give people a 50% off discount code, for example, they would enter that during registration. And what LeagueApps does is it spreads the discount across the payment plan. So if it's 50%, you give them a 50% discount code and LeagueApps does the math for you. So several options there. I prefer the first one because you don't have to go create a bunch of new stuff, but it's up to you. Any other questions? All right. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all so much again for your time and attention here. That's a lot of content, but very powerful stuff and important to get right, of course. So if you do have any follow-up questions, be sure to let us know, support@leagueapps.com. If you, or you can get in touch with your customer success manager. Also, some more plugs, go to events.leagueapps.com. I believe my colleague put those links in the chat, blog.leagueapps.com, support.leagueapps.com. You can get to all of those from our website as well, but definitely check out our future webinars and our previous webinars as well on our website. And yeah, we will be sending out a recording of this to everyone that registered. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great day.